Once, a wealthy young woman wanted to have fun and learn more about a charming new school teacher who happened to be a writer. Their shared love for books brought them closer, not just spiritually. Inspired by the teacher, she wrote a daring story where they were the main characters. This story became a way for the man to let go of stress. However, when the writer's wife and the school principal discovered the story, the man's life took a big and unexpected turn. The film opens with Cairo Smith, our main character, feeling inspired to write a story. However, things don't go well for her. Cairo dreams of becoming a writer and lives alone in a big house on a hill in the Tennessee woods. Every morning, Cairo walks through the woods to get to school. Today, she hopes to meet a real writer, Jonathan Miller, who just started teaching literature classes at her school. Before class starts, Miller enters the room with a bouquet of flowers, surprised to find a student already there an hour early. Cairo was told about Miller's class by her friend Winnie. Miller gives Cairo a list of books to read, but she has already read them all. When Winnie comes into the classroom, Cairo suggests they go get some snacks. Cairo offers to bring something for the teacher, but he politely declines. As the girls leave the auditorium, Miller notices the books on Cairo's desk, surprised to see only one book there. Boris Fillmore, a buddy of the teacher, strolled into the auditorium. He playfully snatched the book from Jonathan's hands and started reading aloud, leaving Miller somewhat puzzled. In a friendly gesture, Miller brought the professor a snack, but Boris had a mischievous plan to play a prank on Jonathan. The girls' belongings revealed various books, including one written by Miller himself. Meanwhile, Beatrice, Miller's wife, was immersed in her work in the parlor, where she also crafted short stories. Jonathan proposed celebrating the professor's first day of school, leading to a discussion about the books Miller's students were delving into. Their conversation hit a pause with a phone call from Amy, Beatrice's editor. As Beatrice chatted with her editor, Jonathan mixed cocktails and set the mood with some music. Beatrice joined him at the bar, and they reminisced about a Henry Miller book they had shared in the past. The conversation evoked memories, prompting the couple to decide on a bit of spontaneous fun. Just as they were about to continue their dance in the bedroom, Beatrice got another phone call from the editor. After the weekend, the professor enjoyed coffee with his friend at the stadium, gazing towards the forest. Boris cracked a joke about the ghosts rumored to inhabit the fog. Suddenly, Cairo emerged from the forest, piquing the men's curiosity about her taste in music. Fillmore kindly offered Cairo a cookie, boasting about his homemade treats. Miller wondered if Cairo was ever afraid to walk through the woods alone, to which she confidently replied that she was the only scary creature in the forest. In the school hallway, Winnie was gathering her belongings from her locker when she spotted the teacher, catching his attention. She expressed her desire to return to Coach Fillmore's class, flirtatiously engaging with the teacher. Unbeknownst to them, Cairo observed from around the corner, finding amusement in her friend's antics. Winnie confessed her interest in getting to know the teacher better, surprising Cairo with her specific preference in relationships. After class, the girls retreated to Level Hall to unwind. They lit up and shared their secrets while Cairo wrestled with writing an admissions essay about her most significant accomplishment. Despite Winnie's suggestions of various topics, Cairo found herself drawing blanks. Winnie proposed that Cairo should seek out new experiences to write about, using the close relationship between a teacher and a student. The heroine suggested that Winnie had eyes for Fillmore. In turn, Winnie shared her thoughts on her first intimate encounter with a man, expressing a preference for Boris due to his experience. However, she also proposed Miller as a potential option for Cairo, leaving Cairo puzzled. Eventually, Winnie confessed her desire to enjoy some lighthearted moments with Cairo. As time went by, the heroine delved into her teacher's book, finding herself captivated by its pages. She observed Miller's passion in the classroom as he enjoyed explaining his subject to the students, particularly to Cairo. One day, Miller invited Cairo to stop by his house after class. Meanwhile, Fillmore dropped by for a chat with Jonathan after class. In the evening, the friends had plans, with Boris aiming to uplift his friend's spirits. Boris entertained Miller with the Roger Rabbit dance before departing. Left alone, Miller turned on some music and began to dance, caught in the act by Cairo. He then inquired about her future plans, learning of her aspiration to attend Yale. The teacher suggested she attend a poetry evening in Tennessee. They discussed Cairo's story about a lethargic spider, with Miller quoting passages from her work, much to Cairo's surprise. Recognizing her talent, Miller encouraged her to write in the style of her favorite author. Cairo admitted to reading his book and shared her favorite passage, leading to Miller revealing his loss of inspiration after his marriage. Their conversation was interrupted by Winnie's arrival. That evening, Fillmore joined the Millers at a cafe where Winnie served their table. Beatrice showed interest in her husband's students, particularly Cairo, as Fillmore shared details about her. Beatrice observed the conversation between the men, focusing on Cairo. The friends discussed the teaching profession, with Beatrice expressing her belief that Jonathan was a good teacher but suggesting that writing might not be his forte anymore. as he had stopped writing. Jonathan felt disheartened by his wife's words. Meanwhile, Cairo attended a Tennessee Young Talent event hoping to encounter her professor. To her surprise, Miller suddenly approached her and took a seat next to her on the couch. He shared insights about the people gathered at the event, and together they listened attentively to the speaker on stage. Later, they stepped out onto the veranda for a smoke. The following day, Cairo arrived at the stadium with coffee for the men. She had a bright idea. The coach could start a brand for his cookies, and Winnie could design the logo. Fillmore headed to class, leaving Jonathan behind with Cairo. They invented their own secret gestures, and Jonathan found Cairo charming. Later on, Miller exchanged messages with his wife, Beatrice, who was looking forward to a fun weekend. Winnie quizzed Cairo about the teacher's thoughts on her new appearance. After class, Cairo approached the professor about her career aspirations. She selected Henry Miller as her literary inspiration. The professor was intrigued. He believed Miller's style was bold and unique, not typically found in literature courses. Cairo persuaded him to let her write in Miller's style, and he agreed. Winnie observed their discussion with interest. The professor returned home to his wife, where the friend demonstrated to Cairo the value of communicating with the teacher. Boris entered the auditorium, witnessing Winnie's actions at Miller's desk. Boris enlisted the students' help in selling cookies, but Cairo lost her cell phone. The coach and Winnie exchanged contact information. Jonathan returned home to spend the weekend with his wife, Beatrice. She resolved issues with Amy over the phone. Cairo called the teacher, asking him to return her phone. Miller drove to Cairo's home in Level Hill, where it began to rain. Cairo, in an evening gown, stood on the porch as Miller motioned for her to join him in the rain. They shared a kiss. Later that evening, Cairo wrote a story while Jonathan worked on his laptop. Meeting with the student inspired Jonathan, and he and his wife decided not to go on vacation. The professor received a letter from Cairo, but Beatrice was distracted by incoming messages on his laptop. She asked Miller not to interfere with her work. Miller secluded himself in the annex, printing out Cairo's story. Impressed by her work, Miller found the student had written a bold story in the spirit of the author she admired. In Jonathan's imagination, he and Cairo found a sense of relief together. However, in reality, the professor found comfort in reading the story. On Monday, the heroine walked to school through the woods as usual, eagerly awaiting Miller's presence in the auditorium. To her surprise, the teacher asked Cairo to select a different author, deeming her story too explicit. This unexpected reaction left Cairo puzzled, prompting her desire to seek clarification from the professor. Nevertheless, Jonathan chose to maintain their relationship within the boundaries of their educational context. Cairo suspected that Miller intentionally portrayed himself as lacking inspiration, and her words resonated deeply with the writer. Distressed by the situation, Cairo journeyed home through the woods. In the evening, Miller shared with his wife that he had a challenging day. Meanwhile, the heroine was at her house with Winnie, sipping drinks and confiding in her friend about her thoughts on Jonathan. Simultaneously, Miller recounted to his wife what Cairo had written. Beatrice was surprised that Jonathan allowed Cairo to choose an author not included in the school's curriculum. Intrigued, she wanted to read her husband's student's story. Miller gave Beatrice a printout of Cairo's story, and she asked him to describe Miller's character in the tale in her own words. The heroine suggested that Winnie reach out to the coach. Beatrice appreciated the way her husband quoted the girl's story, and the couple decided to ease the tension, pleasing each other. During their active relaxation, Boris arrived at the Millers. Winnie sent a message to the coach, flattering him with her attention. Beatrice was curious about her friend's messages. However, Fillmore refused to disclose his correspondence partner to intensify the level of communication. Cairo suggested that her friend send the teacher a provocative photo. The girls, following the suggestion, removed their t-shirts and kissed. Subsequently, Winnie sent the photo to the coach. However, Cairo had no intention of sending a similar photo to Jonathan. Instead, she sent her story to the school principal, Joyce Manor. Principal Joyce contacted the writer's wife, and Beatrice handed the phone to her husband. Boris left the scene. Miller informed Beatrice that the principal had received a student's story, and the content of the story appeared compromising in the eyes of the public. The woman began to suspect her husband of infidelity, considering teenage girls to be a potential threat. From the accounts of men, it was evident that Jonathan was singling out the female student from the others. At school, Winnie sought out Miller, searching for Cairo. However, the teacher didn't spot the heroine and requested not to be interrupted. Joyce Manor separately spoke with Cairo and Miller. The heroines detailed the narrative of their relationship to the principal, sharing moments spent with the teacher. Jonathan came to understand that the principal was censoring the dynamics between the student and the professor. Following the class, Miller and Fillmore discussed the situation with the girls. Fillmore speculated that Jonathan harbored feelings for a female student. Consequently, Jonathan faced suspension from his class. The professor confided in his wife about the entire ordeal. Beatrice believed that her husband was facing consequences for giving the student hope. Jonathan assured his wife that there was no romantic involvement between him and Cairo. Despite his reassurance, Beatrice was furious, convinced that her husband harbored an interest in getting to know a student on a deeper level. Winnie visited Cairo, who was working on a university essay. Winnie questioned why Cairo was causing upheaval in Miller's life. She urged Cairo to end the game, but Cairo threatened Winnie, claiming to have incriminating information about her and the coach. Cairo saw the situation as her greatest achievement, finding inspiration in the turmoil with Miller, and even read her story's continuation to Winnie. Meanwhile, Jonathan found inspiration to write a new story and placed it on a student's desk the following day. The girl was captivated by the writer's work. After class, they reconvened at the stadium, where Cairo forgave Jonathan. This marked the conclusion of Miller's Girl 2024. Thanks for tuning in, guys.